Welcome to this week's Foundation Friday. I'm joined today by Ryan Pereira, President of Tau Solutions. Thanks for joining me, Ryan.
Thank you, Jesse. As always, I very much appreciate whenever you set up one of these chats and all the what I consider awareness and a lot of philanthropy and support that you provide and the community provides is invaluable. So I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
No, and thank you again for taking the time to join me. I know this kind of goes back to our fireside that we had, I don't even know, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it the other day. And then when I was talking on the phone, I'm like, can we share this? Can we share your story with the industry? So, I have behind me the logo for seekingbalance.com. Do you mind just kind of jumping in and talking about Seeking Balance and Cingulum, Ryan, and, what that do?
Absolutely. And Jesse, firstly, thank you again, because the truth is, it wasn't like you and I had a follow-up conversation after that. We actually saw each other in Orange County briefly. Unfortunately, we crossed paths and didn't have too much time there, as I was just there for the day trip for the NIFA, which was awesome. But as usual, I'm not surprised by your support, just because you've been showing that with a lot of equipment finance cares and much more. But the fact that you even remember what we spoke about and it kind of jogged your memory, I can't say thank you enough for that. That means a lot to me. And, I'm not saying that simply because we're doing this recording for an awareness. It just really is a nice thing that somebody's championing that and is aware about it. So I appreciate you have that on in the background there, seekingbalance.com.au. I would like to maybe just talk very quickly about my story. So right now I'm the president and chief operating officer for Tau Solutions, an independent software vendor and a boutique fintech firm actually headquartered in Toronto. I have an office here in San Diego with some folks, and we actually have a couple other offices in the world, one in Sydney, Australia, which I actually just visited, which was amazing, by the way. Just a great place to go to. My first time there, which was just a really nice experience overall. And we're actually imminently expanding into Europe. And my role in Tau over the course of the years have just really been related to what I consider business development, some sales, as well as more operations. And unfortunately, and fortunately, and I'll explain what I mean by that, I've been battling a very severe undetected chronic ailment for now it's been 12, 13 years. And it's called triple PD or MDDS. There's actually a mixed hybrid of it. And triple PD stands for persistence postural positional dizziness. MDDS stands for Malda-Debarkman syndrome. If you look up both of these, because I highly suggest people do for an awareness perspective, they'll actually find that they might even had a version of it at some point in their life. To put it simply, people often complain when they get off a cruise ship that they haven't found their legs. I have that every day. So when I walk, when I sit down, when I sleep, when I go play a sport or try to, anything that I do in my life, I'm consistently moving on the inside. And that's probably the easiest way to describe it is you can't see it right now if you look at me, but I'm actually moving my chair back and forth so often throughout the day because sitting still is one of the hardest things in the world. The way that
what's interesting is when we were doing that fireside, you were actually a little self-conscious about it. And I'm like,
that's right.
I don't even really notice, like I'm not,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always want people to maybe understand it because I don't want them to think I'm fidgeting a lot or that, I shake my legs. These are actually little tricks of the trade. If you start to look at the way that the brain tries to adapt and correlate and understand and prioritize movement and pattern over what actually is setting priority within the brain. And that's actually some of the stuff I had to just learn on my own over the years within the community and more. And honestly, the jury's out of whether that's good for you or not. Sometimes actually the meditative state of being still is the way that you can get through a lot of your day as well. So it's actually very, what I'd consider cumbersome, and there's a science behind it and much more. Sure. But this is a real growing severe ailment, and there is no cure. And I say all this up front to say that this is something that has to be spoken of more. A lot of people in your family, other families, friends always will complain about dizziness. At some point in their life, you'll hear somebody say, I'm dizzy, or that, I got brain fog, or that it feels like I'm being pushed or pulled to the side. These are all symptoms of other types of what I'd consider chronic ailments under the vertigo umbrella. And the triple PD MDDS mix that happens to be my symptomatic sensations is actually within that realm. It doesn't mean that I have straight vertigo. There's so many branches of vertigo, but at some point, my brain hadn't recovered to its spatial awareness after a true full-blown vertigo attack. And I'm actually an advocate for raising awareness on triple PD and MDDS, just because it doesn't come top of mind, Jesse, when it comes to all the funding, research, development, and more. I mean, there are horrendous, tough ailments that everybody has unfortunately had to go through or seen through family members and loved ones, such as, cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, severe depression, severe anxiety. Those are more things, and the list goes on to 100 other more, that are creating more of a buzz in this particular world, and rightfully so, because they're so detrimental to somebody's health. But so is this. And this, unfortunately, this meaning triple PD, MDDS, those types of realms under the vertigo umbrella, they need a bit more awareness. They need a lot more funding. They need much more research. And there's some very strong advocates in the world, some of the top neurologists, some of the top, what I consider neurology departments, as well as people who, typically work with concussion or more, who are very well versed and well read on this. But I'm here to kind of talk about two particular areas that I feel that people could get more of an understanding about what this is. And if they feel that they actually can connect with somebody who's actually battling something like this, or they themselves have gone through chronic vertigo or dizziness, these two links are invaluable. I can't even put forth how good and how hard it is at the same time to understand both of these particular areas, because it can take years to find the two links I'm about to talk about. So seekingbalance.com.au. Joey Remini is a very popular audiologist, neuroplasticity guru, coach. She's located in Australia. She has a very nice practice and program that she built up herself. She has a very, honestly, challenging, tough story that she's gone through herself, that I would like people to maybe take a look at just from her own story perspective to support her. She offers a very specific book called Rocksteady. I'd like to say that I'd like to offer that for free to anybody who's watching this, who's interested in reading it. I can supply them a copy. I'll purchase it myself and I'll give it to them. And the reason is because it's just such a good book that helps people understand undetected chronic dizziness ailments and the severity of them, and also what you can do with them right away, tips and tricks to help right away. This is not something that you have to spend $5,000 on. You can actually buy this book for probably sub $30, and now you're getting a booklet into the start of your neuroplasticity world. It's huge. It's a major benefit. There's no cure, as I mentioned to what I was saying before, but something like this is part of somebody's healing journey, and it's substantial. There are scientific cases of their brain rewiring, their synaptic neural networks rewiring and refiring in a more, what I'd consider, optimal state to help them with the internal dizziness and imbalance. And it goes well beyond dizziness, tinnitus. People complain so much about ringing in the ear, to a point where it gets so severe, Jesse, that people, unfortunately, they commit suicide from stuff like this because of how severe this is. Like, they're literally not able to have a conversation with you and I because of the ringing in their ear so loud. This program helps so much. It's not just dizziness. It's also what I consider imbalance. And it's also, tips and tricks related to what I consider anxiety, and also things like tinnitus and more. So it's not just one particular, area. It's really what I'd consider a book to help you unravel the mysteries of undetected chronic illness in general. And then if you go one step further, Joey Remini and seekingbalance.com.au actually offer a program called Rocksteady. Rocksteady is amazing. It's basically a 12-week course program, but you don't have to fit it into 12 weeks. You could fit it into 12 years. It's really a journey for the rest of your life. And what you're trying to do there, Jesse, is go through the particular program. It's almost like a university course, you could think of it. And you're basically, how do you get a passing grade? You simply just go through it yourself at your own pace, on your own schedule, because it's your own journey and you're building your own program around neuroplasticity. It's amazing. I think the cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $1,600, $1,700 US dollars. So there is a fee that goes to it because this program was crafted and curated by Joey and her team. I just wanted to put that out there, that every single year I offer at least one scholarship associated to this program directly for myself. And I'm always trying to raise money and funds associated with that. So there is a lot that we can do from a, a fund me style example of helping this particular group. Joey herself will offer this course for free to anyone. So that's a huge benefit. It might cost $1,600, $1,700, but there's ways that she'll offer it at no fee at all, because she doesn't simply want to keep somebody from their healing journey. And that's invaluable. And if you think about it, Jesse, going back to what I was saying earlier, there's no cure. So what are the treatments right now? Well, there's plenty of prescriptions that people can give you that may or may not help some people. And, I will say this up front, that if something really helps you, and I had to learn that myself over time, you don't knock it, you don't second guess it all the time. You believe in it to a certain degree, and you balance it out as best as you can, because we're all trying to navigate challenges. So sometimes prescription drugs have helped in certain cases of dizziness and vertigo, but a lot of the time they don't. And somebody's left thinking, well, is this it? Because this is really not helping with the sensations and symptoms. It's now, making me more relaxed, or it's maybe patching things, but it's not actually getting to the root cause, which is actually very true. Seekingbalance.com.au is here to discover how you can get back your life in many ways. And there'll be a lot more that comes out on that, between Joey and myself and other testimonials as time goes on. But I highly suggest people support and take a peek at this website, because Joey and her group and her team, they're invaluable for dizziness. And this is a growing problem. Numbers will increase substantially, unfortunately, as years go on with imbalance disorders. The other clinic I really want to touch on, if you don't mind me, speaking a little bit more here, Jesse.
Absolutely.
You and I spoke briefly about it, and they're called Cingulum Health. So I actually went to Australia, and I was actually there for medical research and medical treatment. And I did meet with Joey when I was in Australia, which was an amazing session on its own, probably a whole other fireside podcast chat for us some other time. But Cingulum Health, and that's actually Cingulum, Cingulum, health.com. They're fantastic. They're a whole other clinic that actually is complementary to neuroplasticity and Joey Remini's program. Happens to be located in Australia as well. Australia seems to be at the forefront at what I'd consider advancing a lot of dizziness treatments and research. The United States has been great too, and there's other parts like Canada, Europe. I could go on about each piece bringing a different flair and talent, but Australia has been really, really forward advanced thinking over the past, what I'd consider 5 to 7 years, especially. So I went there to Sydney, had a great time just trying to understand the lay of the land from a medical facility perspective. And every single day I was there, I was in treatment or research. And that was from like 7, 8 a.m. until 3, 4 o'clock. And you're sort of spent and exhausted after that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I got up to there, because this is going to be a growing treatment for so much more. So we just spoke a bit about dizziness and balance disorders and much more. And that's very personal to my life. And that's very personal to the way that, unfortunately, numbers are substantially increasing year in, year out of undetected chronic dizziness. What Cingulum does is they look at a lot of other things related to challenging brain injuries and brain, what I consider optimization. So they have a world-renowned, really world-renowned neurosurgeon. His name is Michael Shagru. He's worked with Dr. Teo and Alex, who runs the clinic. Amazing people. I could go on and on about how good this group is at Cingulum. I spent a week and a half with them. I highly encourage everybody to take a look at what they're up to, because it's not just dizziness and vertigo. It's so much more. They're looking at, Jesse, to put it, as much as I can in layman's terms, it's basically an MRI, a functional MRI that you can get anywhere. You can go get that here locally in the US, Canada, Europe, Asia, Australia, whatever. It's not necessarily the most affordable, depending on where you're getting it. It can be anywhere from a few $100s to $2,000 just for an fMRI. It's not the same as an MRI. The fMRI is really nice because it takes a look and slices up every part of your brain into what I consider at least 180 different particles on each side, the left and the right. It's then funneled into this amazing software called, by a company called Omnicen, who won an innovation award for this amazing technology that reads the brain and can actually look at every target and area on how effective and optimal you are, or where there could be potential neurons and neural networks and synaptic neural networks that aren't firing as effectively. So Jesse, they could take a scan of your brain. Forget about mine. They could take a look at yours.
I don't know if they want to look at my brain. I don't know if they want to look at my
brain. they could funnel in. I might tell them to reach out to you so we could take a look at your brain. That would be interesting. I'm sure they would find some interesting, fun stuff like they did for mine, which is basically various areas that are related to like all parts of your brain that are maybe working well and maybe not working as optimally. And literally they can pinpoint, areas where you have anxiety. They can pinpoint areas where you might have mild depression. And those are just like, those are major, let's be real, in COVID-19 and this pandemic, those are two very large areas to focus in on, let alone the growing unfortunate Alzheimer's and dementia, which is a whole other area of study that Cingulum Health is doing. But when they find that, they use what I'd consider RTMS. TMS is transcranial magnetic stimulation. That's basically a magnet that's put on your brain at various targeted areas based on this functional MRI and this award-winning software by Omniscient that reads the brain so effectively. And then they're able to target and lightly, non-invasively stimulate your brain. And they're basically doing more active, what I consider neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity at its basic form is, the brain's ability to change, plasticity. Neuroplasticity in the positive sense is the, changing for the better. It's really the way that you want to rewire yourself and your brain for the better. We are all adaptable to change. Many years ago, prior to the 70s, people thought that we were all born one way and we stayed one way. We had an IQ test when we were 5, and at 50, we weren't going to be that dissimilar as that growth occurred because we weren't able to change. That's not true. We only found that out in the past 50 years, unfortunately, that is completely not true. You can change at any point in time. It takes some effort and it takes some work, and it also takes some support, but we can change and we're capable of it. And we're also capable of it for the better. And that's why there's a lot of people in the industry, such as Joe Dispenza. If you take a look at some of his work, who literally are people who have prided themselves on, Dr. Joe Dispenza, on, helping people heal and cure outside of the traditional Western medical world, which is still very helpful. It's not, there is no knock on any brief of any area, I should say, of medicine. Every area has helped contribute. And I think if everybody respects that, you kind of see that you're in it together. It's not one versus the other. It's how do we get better with everything? And Joey Remedy and Cingulum Health are really here to kind of promote and show that in various ways. And taking it back to Cingulum for a second, that Rtms treatment, very non-invasive. It's like a theta burst treatment where you're literally having a magnet just, lightly, what I consider stimulate your brain for a couple of minutes on 3 or 2 targets per session, 5 times a day for 5 days. And does that mean you have to, go there and actually get this done and be there in person and be present and get away from your cell phone and realize this is something that you should do? Absolutely. But it's not like this is 5 years or 5 weeks. This is a week worth of stimulation for potentially helping literally cure anxiety, depression, helping with Alzheimer's, dementia, and more. There's statistical studies from Cingulum and this award-winning software by Omniscient that are showing how groundbreaking this is. We're going to hear much more about it soon. They actually have a new clinic opening up in LA, which is going to be happening in the next, probably anywhere from 3 to 6 months. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. And the truth is, they need support. Getting into the fees a little bit, Jesse. If it's like anywhere like Canada or Australia, and even in the US, if you're lucky enough to be part of what we consider covered health insurance, a lot of stuff is covered. Things like this that are a little bit more cutting edge, they're not always covered. You have to fight for the way that they can be covered partially, or honestly, you need support and you need money and you need people who can help you. That's what I'm trying to raise awareness for as well. We're trying to basically get to a point where somebody walks in the door, they're on, honestly, death's doorstep in many ways. They don't know who to go to, who to turn to. And I'm not going to say no. Nobody here as part of this team is going to say no. We're going to try our best to figure out a way to help people as best as we can. And things cost money for sure. You know, the whole Rtms treatment in the US is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of some $15,000 to $20,000 as an example. A little bit more affordable in Australia right now. It's probably in the realm of 6,000 USD, which that's a huge difference. And, you know, in the United States, I'm sure we can get that down. It's a matter of just time, but everybody's trying to work together on it. And, you know, I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted both of these practical practice programs, clinical areas, seekingbalance.com.au, cingulumhealth.com. Amazing teams, and I can't speak more or highly of them. I would love to chat more about it, but I just wanted to give you a brief intro on it.
No, I thank you for that, Ryan. So when people are watching this, you know, can they reach out to you directly, or obviously you mentioned both of those websites? Just my question: what can people in equipment finance do when they're watching this to make a difference?
Absolutely, reach out to me directly, and that's probably the best way to go through it, because I would rather immediately try to answer and respond to a question and direct somebody to the right area. If somebody who's watching this actually is aware of anybody who's dealing with undetected chronic illness, who's lost, if it's in dizziness, immediately call me. You know, my cell phone is littered all over TAS Solutions website, as well as my signature.
I'll even add it to one of the PowerPoints that'll be dropped in after this video.
That's great. Yeah, at any time anybody can call me on that. This is the top of the list to help on for me forever. And if it's somebody who's just in the realm of wanting to understand how they can support this industry, you know, what I'm going to be doing to do that, you know, I would love to just hear from them in general. We're always looking for more people to be aware of what's going on here, as well as how they can help. And I would only want to welcome a very healthy conversation from that. So it's probably direct to contact me best.
Okay. Sounds great, Ryan. I really appreciate your time and talking about this today, and look forward to seeing you here in the near future, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jesse. And again, you didn't even have to remember that conversation from 4 months ago, but you did. So honestly, I genuinely mean it. Thank you so much, because without people like yourself who says, hey, you know what, you've mentioned this once and it kind of seemed like it's something that needs to be spoken of much more. Can we chat about it? It doesn't get spoken of. You know, it gets brushed under the rug a bit, or other people have to work a little harder. Your platform provides an example where we can actually share these types of stories. You can then put it out to a wonderful industry that I happen to be a part of, that you happen to be a part of, and people who are interested can actually, you know, understand more here, and maybe we can touch somebody that way. So thank you again, Jesse. I sincerely appreciate it.
No problem, Ryan. I appreciate your time today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk soon. Thanks, Jesse. Have a great day.